My guest is Fred Snyder, and in doing what I do, you're a generalist. You keep on talking yourself. I don't think you're much of a generalist. I think you're very specific. You just know lots about a lot of things, and you only deal with the mutual funds, and you only deal with the life insurance because you're not a licensed real estate man, and you're not a lawyer for wills and so on. But I think you know as much about that. You even took a course on divorce and separation, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
You did. I mean, you have kept your knowledge up and taken courses and kept yourself on top of this far more than anybody else that I know that is in effectively the same business. I'm going to get Richard. He's just going to move our still camera, and I was about to move back where I was. Anyway, so I watched a program on television today on posture, so I was trying to sit up a little straighter. Anyway, it's sort of fun. But you, every time I see you, you're working on another computer program. You're working on something to help pick out the best mutual fund and the best investment and the best thing that this person should do.
David, your work in this area is never over. It's a moving target. It changes, evolves all the time.
And you built yourself your own investment counseling programs that show what happens to the tax and everything else when somebody makes it. You built, and it's on your website at www.mutualfund101.com. Where do you go? You go on the left-hand side and you find the mortgage calculator you've got
that's right,
to show what happens if you make your mortgage deductible. I mean,
does all the calculations. Yeah.
Far more. I mean, I may have written it, but you went in and did and I've never ever, and what's his name, Fraser Smith, in his book, he gives you the opportunity to buy a mortgage calculator that he's written and sells to you on a CD. For some reason or other, even though I wrote it in '76, and I've done all sorts of multi-plan and Excel and Lotus 1, 2, 3 spreadsheets, I've never once had the desire or the thought to make that software available to the people. You give it away. Fraser sells it for $19. You give it away. You give away so much stuff.
Maybe we should get
you an Order of Canada or an Order of BC or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well,
we do a second opinion on your investment portfolio, prepared by a chartered financial analyst that I pay a very substantial salary to do that for me on behalf of my client. He's a CFA, chartered financial analyst. These are the guys that run mutual funds, and I have one of those guys on staff. Okay. I do tax returns for people, and I'm sure that you do too. I prepare a written financial plan for every single client that comes into the office. Okay, so a written financial plan lists their goals and objectives, lists their income line by line, their expenses line by line, their assets line by line, their liabilities line by line. The insurance that they have is clearly spelled out. Their will, their estate plan, the whole 9 yards, and all the risks that they might be exposed to in a document which is called a written financial plan, and I do it complimentary.
And you will talk to and make your time available to people that have got $100 a month to invest, $5,000 to invest, or $500,000 to invest. Is that a fair statement?
How about 10 million?
Okay. Well, if somebody's got 10 million, go see.
The amount is irrelevant.
But what I like,
I don't turn anybody away.
What I like about you, though, is that guys like, and I'm going to name a couple, guys like Gordon Stenner, or his now daughter, what's her name? Can't remember her name. Vanessa, or Thane, the son. They don't want to talk to you unless you got a couple of $100,000, and in my opinion, don't have anything that comes close to the service that you provide to the people. But they've made themselves elitists.
Sure.
And
well,
you haven't done that.
I had a young lady come into the office a couple months ago, and I spent a considerable amount of time with her. She invested $10,000.
Yep.
She sent her parents in. They come in a few days ago and invested $400,000 with me.
Well, $400,000 is a lot better than 10.
Yeah, but if it hadn't been for the daughter, I wouldn't have got the parents.
But I want to tell the audience that I have I've seen you spend 2 hours talking somebody out of investing $10,000 with
Sure.
you, and send them out to pay off their credit cards or send them off to buy a condominium. I remember one couple back in '81, and you sent them out to buy a condominium, and all they wanted to do was buy a $10,000 RSP.
That's right. Correct.
So it takes 10 times longer to stop them from buying the RSP than it does just to sell it, doesn't it?
Sometimes.
Trying to talk them out of it.
Sometimes. But the fact of the matter is that if you do business with the sons and the daughters and the next door neighbors and their employers and their employees and so on, there's a whole circle of influence there. And if you do a good job, you'll get that whole circle of influence.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
There's no better advertising. Keep your nose clean and you stay out of trouble and you stay objective when you're sitting down with people. And you say, if this situation was me, what would I recommend to myself?
Yeah.
And that's my standard. That's exactly what I go by.
What would I want my daughter? What would I want
Yeah.
my son? What would I want
Yeah.
somebody that I like
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
Zig Ziglar says you can have anything in this life you want if you only help enough other people get what they want first. And I
Well,
believe in that philosophy.
I certainly have to admit that when I was having all my financial difficulties in '81, '82, or not '81, in the 2002 when Revenue Canada put me into receivership, I could not believe the number of people that came forward and offered help. It was just, I mean, you were one of the biggest ones. You and Ozzie Jarrock and the people that, you know, that helped. And it's a nice feeling to know that his two things happen. The odd person turns and walks away from you, and then 5 other guys step forward. One good friend, and I'm not going to name him because he's asked me not to, sent a check for $2,000 and another $1,000 a month checks in the envelope for eating money.
Oh, you're in bad shape, really?
Well, no, he didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
But he sent $14,000, and Richard knows who I'm talking about. It was completely unexpected, not whatever. And I have to admit that we used $6,000 of that money out of the 14, and that was enough to get through.
Sure.
Right? It was just that extra little, the extra, and what's the right word? It was the extra thing that made it possible to survive without being totally embarrassed.
What happened to you with the tax man essentially could happen to anybody.
Well, it does.
Because you did not do anything that was technically illegal.
No,
You had a difference of opinion with the tax people, and you lost.
Well, I didn't even really lose that much. It was really funny. The original bill they gave me was $5 million. And we got that reduced after a 30-day trial to $500,000. But it was 14 years later, by the time we got that reduced in a courtroom, and reducing it to $5,000 or $500,000. The $500,000 I could have written a check for the first day. The $5 million was impossible. By the time
you would have earned $10 million.
Yeah, well, by the time the $500,000 bill was issued, it was now $3.5 million again, and the business had been destroyed by the original thing. We went from 700 offices down to, well, working out of my house. So it all became impossible, and it was just one of those things. And you know, I look at the whole thing and say, gee, you know, it can happen to anybody. And I meet all sorts of people. I wrote the story in Western Investor magazine, as you know, and likely 1,000, I didn't keep a record, but likely 1,000 men and women, most of whom, or many of whom's names you would know because of the business that they'd had and so on. I mean, look at Peter Pocklington, who hired Wayne Gretzky. He's sitting in the bankruptcy court and being charged with bankruptcy fraud now down in California. It's the number of people. Conrad Black is in, I mean, Bernie Evers is in jail. There's so many people that were sitting there. At least nobody ever charged me with a criminal thing or anything. And, you know, thank heaven, everybody